Milton T. Matthews, 93 years old. I was a sailor in the United States Navy in World War II. I enlisted 9 months prior to the United States getting in the war, March 1941. I enlisted for 6 years. Well, boot camp, I thought I'd done the wrong thing when I got into boot camp, but I survived that. It was 8 weeks, and we were given tests while in training to see if we qualified for any of the schools that the Navy had to offer. And I did, and I went to machinist school there for 4 more months in Norfolk. I went to Panama Canal Zone, submarine base, Coca-Cola. And I stayed there working in the machine shop till 1943. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, the fear was that they would come on to bomb the canal zone, because we didn't know to what extent the Japanese Navy had at that time, how bad off they were or whatever, what their intent was. So we stayed on alert all the time down for 6 months. We built machine gun nests on top of all the buildings, put 50 caliber machine guns on those. We sandbagged all the strategic buildings like the powerhouse and the administration building. We filled sandbags till your tongue was hanging out. It just wore out. They put barrage balloons up over all the locks. These were big balloons holding up cables that a plane could not get in to make a bombing run on the locks. They would hit these cables coming up. And that was a strange sight to see. All along that canal, here were these, because one bomb, if it had hit the locks, that would have shut that thing down, and there was no ready fix for it. The Navy always did have what they call landing force, that you could be turned into a soldier right quick. And we were that. We were ready. As if they had captured that or wrecked it, that would have meant going all the way down to Terra del Fuego, South America, the end of the continent down there. Then about 4,000 miles extra. Then 28 miles through that canal into the Pacific. I shipped out, came back to the States, waiting on some ship to be built. The they needed sailors, and they took a lot of them off that had been waiting on shore duty to man the new construction. And so the one that I got on was a fleet oiler, AO 56. A machinist in the Navy was such a hodgepodge. It wasn't just running lathes and milling machine making parts. Might be in the engine room, like I was a throttleman aboard the ship. I worked in the machine shop in Panama, and I did various things as a machinist. What we did then was new construction battleships, cruisers, aircraft carriers. They would send them into the Caribbean on shakedown. And we would give them fueling at sea exercises. And transferring oil out of the tanker aboard that particular ship, whatever we were refueling. We hauled bunker oil in our outboard tanks. We had inboard tanks right in the center of it that we hauled aviation gasoline. It was empty. It was like a cork, way, way up out of the water. When we were loaded, we were almost sunk, it looked like. Water would wash over the well deck in the North Atlantic. And if you were going from back aft on the ship to midship where the bridge was, there was a catwalk way ahead of the deck, well deck. You had to walk on that if you stood a chance of getting washed overboard, if you did. We would load up with oil in Baytown, Texas, go up to New York and catch a convoy there and go across the Atlantic with it. And our purpose mainly was to refuel the escorts, the destroyers, every third day. Because they probably went 3 times the distance that the convoy did, because they were scattering all around, always scooting out miles away from the convoy with their sonar checking for U-boats. Yeah, that was one of my ribbons that I got, was in the Normandy invasion. Before that happened, the day before it happened, we pulled in to Belfast, Ireland, and there was a huge armada of ships there. And we refueled all of these. We pulled out with them the day of the invasion and went along with it. That after it got started, we had the Radio Shack on the Oscilla put out a little paper of what was going on in the world. And when we pulled out, that paper said, the Normandy invasion has started. And we were coming back to the States. So actually, we were the first United States Navy ship to get back from the European operations back to the States. So when we pulled into New York Harbor, all the ships up there saluted, dropped their flags and blowing their whistles. Yeah, I couldn't believe that they were paying us such honors. That when the thing started, we hightailed it. What else could we do? Our mission had been accomplished. She was a welder in the Navy Yard. She was helped building the Ticonderoga aircraft carrier. And I thought, oh, that's a pretty girl over there. And your chances of meeting a girl in Norfolk were rare because I reckon there was 100 sailors to every girl there was. And you never know whether she would shun you or what, but we struck up a friendly conversation and went out together after we got through eating, and that got it started. So I got married then, and my wife and I lived in Harrisburg, and we went, when we heard the war was over, we went to the square there in Harrisburg, and it was, I reckon every town in the country was mobbed with people celebrating. You've seen pictures of sailors kissing the girls and all of this. So my wife and I, we went to town and celebrated. But when it wasn't 2 days that they began interviewing all the enlisted men. Now, how long have you served? And they were starting to kick them out. But me, not being drafted, but enlisted on a 6-year term, I had more points than anyone in there. And this officer said, well, you be the first one out. And I said, oh, I won't need. I got a couple of years to serve yet. So it changed me from a teenager to a grown man because I had to realize that life was not something you were guaranteed for. It might end as a young person or whatever. I told my daughter that I was not going off chasing rabbits, but the Lord came into my life during the war because a sailor came up to Harrisburg where I was, a young sailor that was drafted in, but he was a Christian. And he led me to the Lord. And I would say that was the greatest experience that came out of the war that benefited me. And it changed my life. So at this point in time, when I look back, the veterans that I remembered, even when I was a little kid, were from various wars. There were still some veterans left from the Civil War. And we had several wars in my memory that I had studied in school in. The Civil War, the Spanish-American War. I remember my mother telling me when I was just a young kid. Well, the last veteran from the Civil War died. And in time, it will be the same way from World War II.